Howdy, my name is Samuel Morris and this is 3rd and 4th grade English Language Arts. Welcome! Today we're going to talk about the elements of a nonfiction text and how to identify those and communicate those in an organized fashion. So today when we get started, you're going to need your week 1 printouts found on the website and something to write with and to follow along with me. So let's get started. So speaking of organization, that's going to be the main focus when we're dealing with nonfiction texts. Because if we can communicate what a nonfiction text is about, we can essentially communicate the nonfiction text. And what I mean by nonfiction is something that's informational or fact-based. So let's just use something off the top of our heads at the present moment, right? A current event that's going on. The Chiefs are in the playoffs, right? So let's see, the Kansas City Chiefs are in the playoffs. Okay, so that's going to be the main idea of whatever article we read with this title, or that's even remotely about the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs. That's the main idea. So what we're going to do today is we're going to create a graphic organizer around the Kansas City Chiefs and the playoffs. Now we're going to include some details, and again, we're coming up with these on our own because we're going to have some experiences later where we read some that have already been written, and it's going to be a little bit more natural after we've practiced with our own ideas to practice with the ideas of other people. So first, let's see, the Kansas City Chiefs and in the playoffs. We're going to add a detail to this main idea right here, add another detail, add a third, and a fourth detail to this main idea. So one of the details, right, is that we won last week against Buffalo. Right? That is a detail that supports the main idea that the Kansas City Chiefs are in the playoffs and now competing for the Super Bowl. Oh, I just gave you another one. Off of this main idea, another detail is that now they're competing for the Super Bowl. Super Bowl found. Okay? Another detail, and again, there's 100 details we can include from this because there's many ways that we can dissect this. So another detail we can include is maybe a star player, like quarterback number 15, I think we all know who that is, right? And maybe something else is we can say that this is the 3rd consecutive AFC Championship appearance. Enough about the Chiefs. Let's get practicing with some nonfiction text. So in that same spirit, we're going to use this graphic organizer and this structure for when we read a paragraph. When we read a text, it could be as simple as a paragraph like we're going to read today. It can be an entire newspaper article, all the way up to an entire book or entire series. This structure is really going to help us with those elements of nonfiction and being able to clearly communicate the main idea, supporting details, and those really basic structural parts of a nonfiction text. So you'll have a couple of these in your printouts that are blank, main idea with details. This one is for you to take notes on right here, just so you understand that the main idea goes in the middle and the details go on the edges, just like we did earlier. And we're going to practice now with some texts. So the first text we're going to look at is about shapes. That's the title of it, right? So I already have an idea that the main idea is going to be about shapes, maybe some specific shape, but let's read and find out. So feel free to follow along with me. Shapes. Many different shapes are considered quadrilaterals. A quadrilateral is any shape that has 4 sides. Squares, rectangles, rhombi, and trapezoids are some examples of quadrilaterals. Triangles, pentagons, hexagons, and octagons are not considered quadrilaterals because they do not have 4 sides. All right. So if I'm going to think about the main idea, what was spoken about, well, most, I'm going to say quadrilaterals. It was mainly about quadrilaterals, which, as we know, are four-sided shapes. And oh, there's one of our details, right? So 4 sides. Okay, now let's look for another detail. And we can even use our memory for this one too. I remember from math class, and I also remember from the reading, that a four-sided shape is a square, a rectangle. Those are a couple of the examples of four-sided shapes. We also know that there's some other less common shapes like rhombus and trapezoid. Like a rhombus and a trapezoid. Both of those have 4 sides too, making them quadrilaterals. And then the text is a little bit specific at the end right here where it tells us things that are not. So some non-examples are things like triangle, pentagon, and hexagon, and a couple more as well. All right. So we see here that this graphic organizer has helped us understand what the main idea is and then some of those supporting details. And we can take this big chunk of text, break it down first into this graphic organizer where we analyze the elements, and then lastly be able to say a sentence like, that paragraph was about quadrilaterals, which have 4 sides, like squares and rectangles, rhombus and trapezoids, and not the shapes like triangles, pentagons, and hexagons that have 3, 5, and 6 sides respectively, because, well, that's not 4. So let's try again with another article. At the gym. Women's gymnastics is a very popular sport to watch during the Olympics. The girls compete in 4 different events: uneven bars, balance beam, vault, and floor. While the women's floor routine is to music, the uneven bars, balance beam, and vault are not to music. Men's gymnastics has 6 different events. I almost feel like this is going to begin talking about men's gymnastics now, and then we get cut off. But that's okay, because we know that the main idea, whether it's women's or men's, or whether we're talking about the specific sport or not, is, gymnastics. And in this case, we can go ahead and say women's for our excerpt here, because 90% of this is about women's gymnastics. Now, some of those supporting details. The very first one we see is that it's popular to watch during the Olympics. So we can say popular Olympic sport. All right. Oops. Popular is with a U. Popular Olympic sport. All right. Then we see that there are 4 different events, and 3 are not to music and 1 is to music. Okay, that's kind of a lot to swallow. So let's put it in a simple sentence. 4 events for women. We learn at the end that there are 6 events for men, and that some are to music. All right. So again, we take this chunk of text, we turn it into an organized graphic and web and chart where we can see, okay, it's about gymnastics and here are the supporting details. And then we can turn that even further, right, into a clear and coherent sentence. The text we read was about women's gymnastics, which is a popular Olympic sport. There's 4 events for women and 6 for men, and some of those are to music. It's very popular to watch during the Olympics. Lastly, what we're going to do is it's your turn. You're going to read this text on planetary bodies, that's again found in those printouts, and do the same thing. Tell me what the main idea is, and I'm pretty sure you can already guess based on the photo, based on the text. But after you read it, you'll have a really good understanding, and you'll be able to find those 4 supporting details. Well, that concludes our lesson for today. I really hope that you found it useful and that it was as much of a pleasure for you as it was for me today. Again, my name is Mr. Morris. It's been great to have you today. I wish you the best of luck in the next unit in math. And as always, go Chiefs.